I want to take a minute this week to share with you a quote I heard a while back from a friend of mine named Brian Smith. Brian is now the CEO of a company called Expedient in the cloud services industry. And when I first met Brian, he was the chief sales officer of the company. And at the time, I was doing a sales kickoff for his team down in Florida. We were talking about ideas of sense making and some of the ideas I've laid out here under the name of frame making and helping your customers make sense of all the information that they were thinking of so they don't feel quite so overwhelmed with options and with information and with data, with insights and perspectives. And at the time, Brian said something to his team that has always stuck with me in the probably about 4 years since. And I recently got a chance to talk to Brian about it, and he reconfirmed this is still how he thinks about it and shares it with his team today. And here's the quote. He simply told his team, he said, "Our job is to help our customers make the best decision they can in as little time as possible. So our job is to help our customers make the best decision they can in as little time as possible." And there's a lot packed into that one simple quote, because the whole idea that Brian was sharing with his team is really trying to get his teams sort of wrapped around was that is in fact our job. Is our job is when it comes to customers is to help them make sense of the world, to help them make sense of the world of cloud in their case, because it's really confusing and really complicated and it's rapidly changing. And there's long-term bets you have to place there that have huge consequences. So customers are confused. They're overwhelmed. They're just trying to make sense of it all. And he said, that's our primary posture when we face off or when we work with our customers is just to be helpful, help them make sense of that information, make sense of those options, help them pick a direction that they feel good about. It's exactly what I now talk about when I talk about frame making is help customers really put a framework around their decision making process, around the information they're considering, around their definitions of value, such that they can feel more confident, less in you, but more confident in more in themselves and their ability to actually pull the trigger on that large scale decision on behalf of their company. Now, in fact, it's a true story. When Brian first shared that quote at this meeting, someone asked, somewhat tongue in cheek, but somewhat seriously too, is like, okay, so if that's our job is primarily, if not solely, to help our customers make the best decision that they can. What happens if they choose they choose the competition, or they choose to just go in a different direction? In other words, what happens if they choose something where we don't win? And this is where I think Brian's perspective is so powerfully important, which is to say, look, first of all, that's the second part of the quote. Like, if we're going to lose early, right? So our job is to help our customers make best decision they can in as little time as possible. So if we're going to do that, let's do it quickly. But there's a bigger idea at play here. The idea that Brian would share with you if he were here, he would say, but if we're the ones that were most helpful to our customers, if we're the ones that changed the way they thought about themselves, help them feel more confident, then even if we don't win this deal, we'll more likely be the first people they call when it comes time for the next deal or the next decision. And that's a long-term investment that you're making in a relationship. In fact, even one that you may not win today, but ultimately you're increasing the likelihood that you win tomorrow. Brian is playing chess where the rest of us are playing checkers. He's playing the long-term game, and it's a really powerful way to think about how you engage with your customers. And if you go back and you think about the book Influence by Robert Cialdini, which hopefully everyone has read at this point, it's a powerful book about humans and how humans influence one another. What Brian is really talking about here is something that Cialdini discusses in great depth, is this idea of a value exchange, that your ability as a supplier, as a partner, as an advisor, to provide your customers not just a framework to make their decision making easier, but more importantly, to help them feel better about themselves, that is to your customer inherently valuable. It's just like a friendship. A lot of the friendships we have are friendships simply because we like not so much that person, but we like us as a person when we're around that person. They make us feel better about ourselves. And the same thing applies in business in some ways because, well, humans are the ones conducting the business until the machines take over the world. But that's a different episode of The Breakdown. So I think this becomes a really interesting thing, because what the idea is in this value exchange that Cialdini talks about, I am willing to repay to you with business what you have granted me or given to me or shared with me, which is a better, more positive perception of myself. Is all this sort of on the surface? No, it all runs sort of almost subconsciously. It's sort of below the surface, but the way it manifests, the way it appears, is us interacting with our customers from the forward foot, the forward posture being, I'm just here to help because this is hard. And let's see if we can put a framework around this such that you can make the best decision that you feel the best about. It's just a really, really powerful way to think about how you engage with your customers. And when you hear it from your CEO, frankly, it's incredibly motivating.